What's going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday, and welcome into another edition of Mile High Hockey. Lots to get to with the Avalanche, including a big contract extension dished out this morning. But we begin with what happened in Toronto. Brock Nelson, a hat trick. Avalanche get back on track, beat the Leafs 4-1. Mackenzie Blackwood certainly had a nice bounce back effort. But Drew, it's what our question is here on YouTube and on Facebook and Twitter. Is Brock Nelson suddenly the third best player on the Avalanche? Curious to hear your thoughts on this one, and I certainly have some of my own as well.
Well, I'll tell you this much, Will. He's making a case. What he has done since November 29th is just phenomenal. I mean, he's played in 26 games. He's got 21 goals. That's just under a goal per game. In fact, I think he's leading the NHL in the goals per game over that stretch of time. I mean, it's phenomenal what he's done. And, you know, we've talked about Brock before, and I keep kind of going back to the Olympic conversation and how people were ticked off that Brock Nelson was going to be a part of the U.S. Olympic team coming up here in a couple of weeks. And I always think that conversation kind of got in his head, and the fact of like, hey, you know what? I got a lot to prove here. Let me prove to you guys what I'm worth for this team. And what he's doing this year has just been outstanding, especially after a slow start. And I think you look at the chemistry that he's built on that line with Avalanche, and now over the last, I think, 10 games now with playing with Artturi Lehkonen, that line has just been phenomenal. And he just keeps building a case and building a case. Now, if you ask me if he's the third best player on the team, I can't go there yet.
Okay.
He's making a strong case, but Marty Necas is still number 3 for me.
Yeah.
I think he's got 20 more points than Brock Nelson does right now. Marty's just more of a playmaker. Like I look at Brock Nelson, I think he's steady Eddie. He's the guy you can rely on at both ends of the ice. You know what you're going to get offensively. You know what you're going to get offensively and defensively. Marty Necas, to me, he's such an explosive playmaker. The way he can, drive the offense and go from one end of the ice to the other. He's a special type player. Not a knock on Brock Nelson at all, but for me, I think Brock Nelson is probably number 4 to 5 at the worst, probably number 4 for me, behind obviously Necas, Cale, and Nathan MacKinnon.
Yeah, no, when I posed the question, I was thinking the same thing of, Necas is probably still third on my list as well. But the reason I brought it up is because, like you mentioned, over the last 2 months, Brock Nelson has played incredible hockey. The hat trick he had against the Leafs was huge. I know a lot of people were watching the AFC title game, obviously, but I did watch the first hour and a half of that Avs game, and Nelson was the best player on the ice, at least that day, in my opinion. All right, so let's do our top 5 then, because I think MacKinnon 1, Makar 2, Necas 3, Nelson 4, and then 5 for me is tough. I think I'd go Artturi Lehkonen as the 5th best player on this team, but there are plenty of guys who have the resume and have the case. How about you? How does the top 5 specifically sort out with this Nelson surge?
Yeah, I don't think you could go wrong with putting Artturi Lehkonen number 5. For me, I would probably go with Devon Toews. Yeah. I think Devon Toews is one of, if not the most underrated player, maybe not only defensively, but maybe in the entire league. What he brings night in and night out. I mean, he's a special defenseman, and everything he does gets overlooked and overshadowed by what his partner does on a night in and night out basis with Cale Makar, the way he plays. But I don't think it's any sort of coincidence that since Devon Toews has been injured, you've noticed a difference in the Avalanche, especially defensively. They haven't been as good since Devon Toews left with the injuries. So for me, I'm gonna put obviously Nate, Cale, Necas. Man, I might even put Toews number 4. I might even top myself in it because he's so good and give me that defensive reliability a little bit more over that offensive punch from a second line center. So give me Brock number 5 and Devon Toews number 4.
All right, yeah, and plenty of candidates. I mean, Valeri Nichushkin, when he's right, can be in this conversation. Gabriel Landeskog, when he's on the ice, can obviously be in this conversation. And then, they've had the best goaltending duo in the league this year, and neither of us put Wedgwood or Blackwood in our top 5. And speaking of Blackwood, Nelson's going to get all the headlines from what happened in Toronto, but Mackenzie Blackwood was this close to getting a shutout in that game. He was obviously terrible the outing before. I think everyone knew that. It happens. These guys are going to have stinkers, but I thought for as much as the Nelson hat trick was awesome, I thought it was even more key how well Mackenzie Blackwood played against the Maple Leafs.
Yeah, no question. And I'll be honest, Will, I thought we were going to come in here today kind of talking about Mackenzie Blackwood because you mentioned it. The last 2 starts he'd been awful. And it wasn't all his fault. The defense in front of him was not playing well. But to give up, I think it was 11 goals that he'd given up over his last 2 starts before that Toronto game, he'd really been struggling. So I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe we're going to come in here. We're going to be talking about, man, is Mackenzie Blackwood just kind of a problem right now, as good as he's played all year? And then he goes out in Toronto against a really high-powered offensive team that had been playing well up until the last, week or so, and he just dominates the game. Yeah. And Darner gets a shutout. For me, it's telling how well he was able to bounce back, to not let the previous 2 starts get in his head and let this thing kind of steamroll in a negative way. To be able to bounce back like that, to me, was huge. And knowing full well that, hey, you're the guy tonight, because Scott Wedgwood was back in Denver dealing with stuff with his wife. So you got Isaac Posh, who's the backup goalie that night. Like, it's all on you tonight, kid. Like, go out there, Blackwood, stand on your head, steal the show. And he did exactly that.
Yeah, no, it was great to see, and a good effort from him. And obviously glad that the Wedgwoods are adding to their growing family. All right, there was some news this morning. Not going to lie, it caught me a little off guard, but Sam Malinsky gets a 4-year extension with the Avalanche, a little less than $5 million. I know former players like Eric Johnson had advocated for this, saying he's only getting more and more expensive by the day. Still, man, what a meteoric rise for Malinsky. I know he's been great this year, don't get me wrong, but to go from sort of fringe, is he on the team, is he not on the team, to a 4-year extension worth almost $20 million shows you how well he has played and how much the Avalanche organization obviously believes in him.
Yeah, if you'd have told me after last season that we'd be sitting here talking about a nearly $5 million a year deal for Sam Malinsky, I would have thought you were absolutely out of your mind. There was no chance that was going to happen. But you mentioned it, like the meteoric rise, to see the way his game has evolved from the end of last season to what we've seen up to this point this year. I mean, it's phenomenal. And you could tell that the team has so much trust in his ability, going from being that 5th defenseman on the roster, maybe even 6th defenseman on the roster to start out the year, to now playing with Cale Makar while Devon Toews has been out. Now, I think you could make an argument like he struggled at times playing in that top line, but that's kind of what you would expect from a guy that's really a 5th or 6th pairing defenseman. But to get this deal done, I think with the way he's played this year, it's really good, smart business by the Avalanche. Now, it makes him the 4th highest paid defenseman on the team. A little interesting to me that he's technically is the 5th or 6th defenseman. Now he's the 4th highest paid defenseman on the team, behind obviously Cale, who's going to get a massive raise next year.
Yep.
Behind Devon Toews, and then behind Sam Girard. And it makes me really wonder now what the Avalanche do with Sam Girard, because we talked a lot on Friday about possible trades for this team and who could be the guys that could go out. To me, this signals right out of the gate that Sam Girard has got to be a prime trade candidate. If they're going to make a move, he's the guy, because I think the other day when we talked about, we mentioned, if you're going to go out and get an Artemi Panarin, it's probably going to cost you a Sam Malinsky. Well, they just re-signed him. That's not going to happen anymore. That ship has sailed, and rightfully so. So it's going to be interesting to see how this kind of whole thing plays out, how it goes out next year, because now you got to give extensions to Cale Makar, and so you're going to have to probably move some salary there. But great day for Sam Malinsky. He's earned it. He's been one of the guys I think we've talked about the most on the podcast this year, just his growth and development, how good of a player he's become for this team.
Yeah, and it's just another win for Chris McFarland and Joe Sakic and the entire Avalanche front office that, Malinsky wasn't a high-profile name, or he wasn't a high-profile pick, and it was
undrafted free agent.
Yeah, he was back and forth with the Eagles and the Avs, and now here he is cashing in. Good for him, good for the Avs. And I agree with you. Sam Malinsky obviously not getting traded after signing that massive extension. All right, but speaking of trades, there's some news on the Evander Kane front. Fans will remember this guy. He's a villain in Denver. Broke Nazem Kadri's thumb when he was with the Oilers in the Western Conference Final. Kadri obviously missed some time, came back, was a hero in Game 5 in Tampa, scoring in overtime. But Evander Kane linked to the Avalanche and the Stars. I'm just going to say it now. I'm a big no on this guy. Some past sins cannot be forgiven in my eyes, and that's one of them. I think he's a dirty player. I think he's a goon, and I don't want him in an Avs sweater, and I would be disappointed, even if they feel like he can help, if the Avalanche pull the trigger on this trade. How about you?
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. Honestly, when I saw this tweet from Kevin Weeks on Friday night, bringing his name up, saying the Colorado and Dallas were the top contenders to land Evander Kane, first thing in my mind, I went, what the heck are they thinking? Like, there's no way that this could be a legitimate possibility with the history of this guy, all the off-ice stuff with him, all the on-ice stuff with him. Now, you could maybe make the argument and say, all right, you could put that stuff aside if he was still the productive player he was 2-3 years ago, but he's not that anymore. He's not going to be on his third team in a year because he was with Edmonton last year, didn't play the entire regular season, came back in the playoffs. Edmonton was like, nah, we're good. We're going to move on from you. I think he's making $5 million or something like that a year. And they said, no, we're gonna go ahead and trade you to Vancouver. Now he's already wanting to get out of Vancouver. His agent's apparently trying to facilitate a trade to get him out of there. For me, this is a huge, huge no. I know that we talked about, you want to probably upgrade a little bit scoring wise on the wing, but at what cost? Like bringing in a locker room guy like this, it doesn't make a lot of sense for me for the Avalanche. I actually kind of hope that he does end up in Dallas. It kind of feels like the perfect place for him to end up. I know I've heard the Kings are kind of rumored to reach out to him as well, but for me, this is a huge, huge no. And I'm hoping that this is hey, Chris McFarland is just trying to drive up the price on him. So Dallas or somebody else takes the bait, says, all right, we'll go ahead and do this. But the lack of productivity for me is it puts the, slams the door on the coffin or whatever phrase you want to use with it. I'm just absolutely not for me.
Yeah, no, it's not only the lack of productivity, it's his history. Like you said, it's not only on the ice, it's off the ice. They have too good of vibes right now, too good of juju to mess with it by bringing in a guy like Evander Kane. All right, Avalanche will play a couple more games on this road trip, back-to-back, coming up later this week. And Drew and I will be back on Friday to break it all down. Appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you in a few days for another edition of Mile High Hockey.